Hello, welcome to a Darkest Dungeon modded class guide. Happy post-Thanksgiving to all my American audience members. Happy almost December to everybody else, and happy Advent to everybody who's celebrating. If you didn't know, the first videos on the Carve a Hole channel were Darkest Dungeon modded class guides, and I made many of them because I thought this game was excellent. I still do. But I'd kind of beaten it and I'd moved on to Battle Brothers. But I'd had to scratch the itch this last fall, so I got back into it and I downloaded a whole buttload of mods. And what I want to do this December is do a quote unquote advent calendar where I talk about some of the best ones and recommend them to you. Starting with this one here, the dun 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 Hierophant. The Hierophant is one of those ones where it's not overpowered and it's not weak. And that's part of the problem with a lot of modded classes is they're either overpowered and really good and have like one way to play or maybe like 3 good skills. So they're not like tactically interesting, or they just suck. They're like not really worth playing in that sense because they're like clunky or not very good or just boring. So this is one of those ones that actually makes you use your brain, and I'm always a big proponent of using my brain. That's kind of the whole point of why I do this channel. So let's get into it. I'm not going to go over all the stats because I've literally got them on the screen. So not only we're using our brains today, you're using your eyeballs. But the Hierophant is very similar to the Leper and the Crusader in that it's one of those high HP, low dodge, low speed, low crit, high damage classes. Huge chonking HP, big old mallet to whack people with, but you're doing it very slowly and you're getting hit a lot. So, you kind of know the archetype. The resistances are generally average, except for 2 key ones. You have bad trap, but I don't care about that. The 2 key ones are you have really, really good debuff resistance, and you have really, really bad movement resistance. So great, you have a free debuff. I don't tend to think of that being the most important, but I do think of move resistance being a problem when this guy can only move 1/1. Now, what you'll see about the Hierophant is that he's very versatile. He can do a lot of things. His toolkit is very large. It has a lot of different tools in them. But he's basically got single-use tools, or his tools can't be used at the same time. He's not very flexible. I hope you understand that he's versatile, but he's not flexible. He can do a lot, but not at the same time. So 1/1 movement and bad movement resist is actually a potential hazard for this class. So let's go through his skills. His camping skills. This is going to be super brief because a lot of them actually aren't particularly great. And then quickly go through his trinkets and talk about party comps, and we'll be out of here. So, 1, Condemn the Heretic. This is your go-to bread and butter whack somebody with your big ol' hammer. You get plus damage versus humans, plus damage versus bloodsuckers. So basically you want to take him to the Crimson Court. And if you do that, then you're going to be, GG killing. This is not anything that is too out of the ordinary. Again, it's just like the Leper's Chop or the Crusader's Smite. Now, what I want to focus your attention to is this thing called Retribution. Every single one of his 3 attacks here, these 3, get this thing called Retribution, which is a debuff that you apply onto the enemy with a 100% success rate. What you'll see on this mark here is there's the normal, it says debuff target minus 40% damage while marked. That is one that can actually fail. This Retribution is always going to succeed, just like this Retribution and this Retribution. While I'm talking about it, I'll just note that these 3 have things called Inspirations, which are buffs that'll go onto your friendly units, because they're friendly skills, and they'll always work too. So this is your bread and butter whack-a-mole attack. This is one that I really, really like, is the best mark in the entire game. Why do I call this the best mark in the entire game? Well, a couple of reasons. 1, on this character that can only do damage to rows 1 and 2, you actually do some damage with this mark. This isn't a 0 damage mark, it's like a 3 to 4 damage mark, which means if you've got a madman or a cultist acolyte in row 4, and this guy's got 2 speed, so no one else has been able to kill him, they've already gone, or you've stunned him or something and you still need to kill him, you can actually kill him with this ability. So that's a huge bonus over the other ones. So that's one thing, but here's really why this is the best mark in the entire game. Your first debuff, minus damage while marked. So let's say you hit a cultist brawler. He does 10 damage to you. You debuff him for minus 40% damage while he's marked. The mark's always going to last. So if this debuff actually lands, he's now only doing 6 damage to you. So that's not a huge difference, but think of a boss. You have a boss which it does 20 damage to you, and now he's only doing minus 40%. He's only doing 12 damage to you. So that can actually add up if you have AoEs, right? But what's even better is if that does not succeed, you still have the retribution, which is worded poorly, but debuff self minus 40% damage received while marked. Now I think it's a double negative, so it makes a positive, right? Because what happens is they actually take 40% more damage while they're marked, debuffing for minus, so double negative is a positive. So we're using our brains, our eyeballs, and our math skills here today. This is like a whole educational lesson. But yeah, so what you do is you debuff their damage, and then you increase the amount of damage they take. So I'm thinking of like the occultist, who can has a mark. He has a minus dodge mark. Actually, I mean, let me just pull up my occultist right now. He's somewhere over here. Somewhere in these parts. Your occultist has this minus dodge mark, and then this one, which is minus damage, minus prot. So that's what the Hierophant's doing, is he's increasing the damage they take, which is minus prot, right? And minusing the amount of damage they do. But because if you have an enemy with 0 prot, you can't actually debuff them, you still are actually getting more damage out of this regardless of the amount of prot the enemy has. And you're doing it for more, and it's the mark on top of that, so it's way, way, way better than the occultist, right? This is your third ability, and this one cannot be used in the same 2 squares as the other ones, but it's still a relatively good attack. It does moderate damage. Minus 50% isn't a good mod, but remember, he's got a high damage base. 100% damage versus marked, and the retribution is it breaks guard on the enemy. So when the enemy attacks, they break their own guard, and they debuff themselves on minus prot. So really, really good. If you're in a shuffle party, you could do these 3. And if you're shuffling between rows 2 and 3, you would always be able to do something. Or if you have a boss like the Siren, that pulls you over and then brings you back into row 4, you don't have time to be moving +1/+1 forward. But this guy, you need to be killing, so you would be using this. 3 friendly abilities. They're all used once per battle. And let's talk about him super quickly. This one is a heal, and then what happen is when you heal, so let's say you heal the man-at-arms, and then whenever he guards somebody, or he does bolster, or he does some other kind of friendly skill, he'll heal himself for 5 and everybody else for 4. Which means, if you are healing a Vestal, for example, and she does Divine Comfort and heals everybody 4, and not only does she do that, she heals an additional herself for 5, so she's at 9, and everybody else an additional 4, so they're at 8. Whoa! Once per battle. Okay. Stress. This is basically identical, where you heal somebody for 10 stress, they'll heal themselves for an additional 7 for 17, everybody else for 4. Both of these are great for hallway fights, and what's really awesome about them is, like, let's say you're just running something like this. You're like, oh, my team's high on stress for this hallway fight. If you actually remember, you would just pick this. Oh, my team's fine on stress, but they need HP. You just switch it out in between fights, you know what I mean? You just do that. This next one is also excellent. It's probably better for boss fights. Actually, it's definitely better for boss fights than for, like, trashy hallway fights. You give yourself and another friendly 25% prot and minus crits received. Now, I don't care about the inspiration, cure, blight, bleed. I just don't bother with that. But you think about it, the way you lose this game is being, like, crit comboed or something, ridiculous like that. So minus crits received by 10% is pretty good. And 25% prot to boot is excellent. There's some skills that will do prot multipliers. They will, I'm thinking of one where there's you have this, I forget the name of it, but there's a boss where the trinket you get is 100% prot multiplier. So you would get this turned into 50% prot. Now, there's a debuff on that lowers your death blow resistance, but with 50% prot and 66 HP, you hopefully don't need to worry about that. This ability here, I'll be honest, I've never used it in my life. I don't anticipate it. It's a very bad ability because the guy's got 66 HP and enemies don't target high HP characters. They target the low HP characters. So even if this guy gets like crit comboed, he's probably still on like, you know, relatively okay HP. And if he's lost 40 HP and I haven't done anything about it because I'm saving it for this crummy ability, if I've lost 40 HP, there's not 4 enemies left. This is just like a poor game design choice. So I've never used this and I would never pick it. I don't even know what the animation looks like because I've never used it. Let me pull up this guy. So, skills. I'd probably go 1, 2, 3 this, or I would go like this. Or the other combo is you have this and you put them in row 4, and then you just go like this and you just do buffs and then spam that the entire time. That's kind of how you play this guy. He's very simple, but it's great that you actually have to make choices, right? You can't just do this and mark and then row 4 with your own mark at the same time, right? That's actually called balance. Camping skills. This is the best one. You do minus 25 stress and do a nighttime ambush. Always have this. Damage versus humans. You either need it or you don't, you know, depending on the boss fight. If you're camping versus before a human boss, you're on a long thing in the Weald. Yeah, sure. This is basically 3 camping points for a piece of holy water, which is trash, and I would never use this. Or rarely. Okay, you know, maybe I would. I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, but I would probably never use this. And this is a worse version of Encourage because it's chance-based, and if they're not religious, it might actually do literally nothing. So I would never use this. I would have these 3. I'd have Encourage, these 2. And then, you know, maybe just throw this on there, and then if you ever need it for 10 stress, it's a worse Encourage. But Pep Talk, like, I don't know. I just don't use it. Trinkets. This is the best trinket. This is the one I would be looking for, is this Crimson Court one. Because let's say you go to the courtyard, 20% damage, 20% bleed resist, 20% stun resist, mosquitoes, right? And 20% debuff resist. So like Fnatic. Super big. Definitely a win. The Crimson Court trinket bonus, damage received and stress taken, is a huge win too. You do HP done and stress healing, and you debuff targets, so this is a good combo. The rest of these really aren't very good or worth it that much. I wouldn't bother with too many of these. You can read them, you can pause and read, but they're kind of okay. This one and this one might be fine for endless mode. The other ones here. The problem with all of these is basically I would rather just buff speed, damage, accuracy, and prot. Probably in that order. Speed, damage, accuracy, and prot. That's what I would do, and I would rather have that than any of this other nonsense about stealth or you know, this overly complicated version that's basically like really bad Aegis block. I just like don't want that, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't bother with those too much. Combos. So let's say you're running like this. Mark Team is an excellent ability, is an excellent combo. You can probably run it with anybody. And you can do this, but clearly this is the best mark in the game, so you probably want to run him on a mark party. Somebody with Force Guard, Antiquarian could theoretically work. He can work in the Crimson Courtyard, so any other things that do that, you probably need to have a healer and a stress healer. He can't do either of them, but he can be an alt healer and an alt stress healer, so that's a fine ability. So all in all, I would definitely recommend getting the Hierophant. It's an excellent class. It's well made. You have to make choices. Like, not all of these are the best things in the world. They're really strong, but they're one per battle, or in this case, you can't use them at the same time, which is just called, you have to be tactical, right? You can't just have your cake and eat it too, which is why I wanted to start off this advent calendar with the Hierophant, because it's a class that actually makes you use your brain, which is the whole point of this freaking game. In any case, I'll be doing a few more of these throughout the month of December, so I ask that you look forward to them and watch them to your heart's content. And again, enjoy your December, enjoy your Advent, and have a blessed rest of your day. Peace!